The Pine Motel was the motel where Kate and I had first spent the night together years before. Room 19. Two old women that owned and operated the place had become dear friends of mine and always gave me a free room if I would sing a couple of songs for their important customers in their little tiny steakhouse. They had a small 15 to 20 seat steakhouse that was reserved a year in advance for rich people who wanted the best candlelight steak dinner in a four-county area. One night in the early 80s, I was staying at the Pine. It was the night after I'd been fired at Hidden Valley Ski Resort in Somerset. I was down and depressed and lonely and cold. It was January, and I could not figure out where I was going to find work so I could keep going. I buried myself in writing poetry and music for a few days and getting drunk and letting off steam. Debbie was in school, and I was trying to find new clubs in North Carolina and South Carolina. I needed money to drive south. I was only in my mid-30s, and my beard was already white. My hair was gone, and I'd lived through enough road trips to have seen 10 lifetimes already. I would not quit. I was going to sing till I died. Ruthie Bates and her partner Valletta came knocking on the door of room 19, and they asked me if I would come and sing some songs for some special customers, and I said, "Let me get a shower and I'll be right over," and they promised me a steak and free drinks. I got my shower and put on my cowboy clothes and headed across the parking lot. I had my old Martin guitar, Fred, and was hungry and ready for a cocktail or three or four. It was a slow night and fairly early. There were two people at a table by the fire, and I got my guitar out and tuned it and walked over to their table and said, "I'm Mountain John," and Ruthie said, "You folks might like a song." The gentleman at the table said, "I'm Jim McClure," and Ruthie said, "You were great." I sang "Help Me Make It Through the Night," and I followed that with "Green, Green Grass Back Home," and my rendition of "Fire and Rain," both sides now, and "Sunshine on My Shoulder," and then I did my story about Yukon Tim and sang "Night Rider's Lament" off of the old Jerry Jeff Walker album. They were very excited, and I felt good. Jim's wife, Suzanne, said, "You have a beautiful voice, and thank you for coming over and singing for us." I said, "It's my job to give the gift whenever someone needs it." Jim smiled, and we all had a drink. After that, I did some comedy, and the party was on a roll. Jim said, "You know, Mountain John, I would like to hire you to sing in my small bar tomorrow night. What would that cost?" And I said, $200 for 1 hour, 100 now, and the other 100 when I'm done. I asked, "What kind of audience should I expect?" He said, "Just my employees. It's an employee party." I said, "Where is it?" He said, "Here, let me pay you first." And I said, "Okay." And he handed me a $100 bill. I stashed it in my jeans, and he said, "Have you ever heard of Seven Springs Ski Resort?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, it's a small bar inside the hotel." With that, I reached in my jeans pocket, and I handed the $100 bill back to him and said, "I don't ever want a job at another ski resort again. I just got fired at Hidden Valley last night, and I'm not going to the other side of the mountain to another resort because I perform dirty comedy, and someone will complain about me selling too much booze for you and getting everyone hollering, 'Oh shit,' and having fun, and you'll have to fire me. I can't go through that type of success anymore this week. There's got to be some private-owned small bars that aren't owned by some big corporation full of assholes, and that's where I'll be." He laughed and he said, "Here's the 100, and I'll need you to be there singing at 5 o'clock tomorrow." I said, "Do you own it?" He said, "No, but I'm the boss, and no one will fire you." I took the 100 and said, "I'll be there at 3 o'clock. I'll need someone to help unload my truck, and they'll need a cart." And he said, "You got a deal." I shook his hand and looked at him in the eye, and I said, "I hope they like me." And he said, "You got a deal." He said, "Don't you worry. They're going to like you." We had more cocktails. Ruthie and Valletta fed me the best steak I'd had in a long time, and I sang some more, and Jim and Suzanne left, and I thought, I sure hope this works out. Ruthie and Valletta assured me Jim McClure was a straight shooter. I sat by the fireplace and thought and drank. I knew I'd have the money after the next night to head south. $200 would get me to North Carolina. Ruthie and Valletta closed the kitchen and were sitting at the bar drinking wine and telling stories. Valletta was talking about making angels in the snow. As I turned to watch them, I couldn't help but notice how much she looked like a little girl. I listened, and later on that night, I wrote this poem. January 15th, 1981, Pine Motel, Irwin, Pennsylvania, Room 19, Angels in the Snow. In a small bar at a motel in the winter in PA, while relaxing by a fire, I heard a lady say, "Lay down and move your arms and legs and let your body flow, and as you move them up and down, you're making angels in the snow." I turned and looked into her eyes and thought of what she said. As I looked, I realized her cheeks turned blushing red. She went on, though. She did not stop. Her arms were in the air, and I watched. She looked just like a child. No painting could compare. She said, "I wish I were a poet and I could sit and write a poem of the feelings I've expressed to you tonight." I thought, "I wish I were an artist and I could sit and draw a picture of the magic that I just turned and saw." A lady full of beauty, and no one really knows just how many years it's been since she made angels in the snow. As I left the bar that night, I saw her standing there. Her face was almost ageless. There were snowflakes in her hair. She really is a poet, and I will tell her so. For when I turned to say good night, I saw an angel in the snow. There you have it.